everybody. My name is Jared Altick, and I'm here with Kaleb Sackett, and welcome back to another episode of I'll Give It 7 out of 10.
Because you couldn't get enough of it the first time.
Actually, we brainstormed this idea and quickly came up with more than just 10 items, which we thought was a pretty natural place to cap off an individual episode, but we just kept coming up with more ideas. And so, we thought, well, we can do at least one more of these. And we also got some feedback from our listeners.
Oh, do tell.
Yes. Well, we said a couple things that people took umbrage with. The first one is when talking about emojis, I said that there's no kneeling prayer emoji, which is not technically true. There is an emoji of a character kneeling.
Okay.
With their hands on their legs, and
it's
like,
never
well,
sent for prayer.
Isn't that
ever.
a prayer emoji? And I'm like, well, it's a Muslim prayer. It's the salat. It's the ritual prayer.
Okay.
You kneel on a prayer rug and that kind of thing. So I'm like, well, yeah, but that seems very culturally specific. I don't think Christians would necessarily send that, and so
I've never seen someone send it before. So
nobody has. Everybody sends the Namaste one. So that was that. And then the other one was my wife was listening to this with me. I played it and we listened to it together, and she was laughing and was right there with me until I called the beach a 7 out of 10. And I mean, the smiling stopped. I was in the doghouse, and so I was mistaken. The beach is actually an 11 out of 10.
Okay.
I was wrong, and I will be purchasing plane tickets shortly to atone for my sins. So we will try again. I mean, it is a dangerous thing to have an opinion these days, but we will try again. Hopefully, no one's too deeply offended. We just are sharing our opinions of things that we think are we like them, but they're not amazing. They're good, but they have some room for improvement. These are things that are too good to get rid of. They're things that are okay, but they're just a 7 out of 10.
Absolutely.
All right, Kaleb, I'm going to let you go first. You pick one.
All right. My first one is a restaurant option that is available widely in our country.
Now, tread lightly here. This didn't go well last time. All right.
Well, this is a generalization, okay? Buffets.
Okay.
Buffets are a 7 out of 10 because there is a distinct difference between a cultivated, hopefully nicely prepared dish, right, that is on a menu that they have decided this is worth us serving you as a completed thing, right? It's holistic.
The only thing that's going to be on your plate.
Right. And pick and choose options, right? Some of which are going to be decidedly better than others. You've got multiple cooks, you've got multiple stations and warmers, and you might go somewhere and it's like, oh, this just came out and it's great. And you go somewhere else and it's like, are they going to replace this? There's like one mozzarella stick left in there. And it's
like 3 hours old.
Yeah. But they're good. I like buffets, but they're a 7 for me. I just can't. I don't think, oh man, the buffet, woo!
It is. They are good. So good that I too gave it a 7 out of 10. It's on my list.
You're kidding
for
me.
Today. Nope. No, I specifically was going to say the local Chinese buffet. I think that a lot of people turn their nose up at Chinese restaurants and they're just like, oh, it's not nice enough or something. I think there's a lot of good food there. And so it's 7 out of 10. That was one of the items on my list.
I can't believe we have a crossover already on number one.
Well, that's why I have backups.
Some extras.
And so I agree with you. It's good. It's a good place to eat, any kind of buffet, but it's not the best. I wouldn't take like a visitor from out of the country to an American buffet to impress them.
No.
No, they might have a very mixed experience.
I think it's decided then, right? Buffets universally, it has officially been stamped. They are 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
We have decided it for everyone.
Absolutely.
Well, what's your first one?
All right. Well, okay. I'm going to go with Hawaii.
The state.
Yes, and specifically a vacation in Hawaii.
Have you been before?
Yes, I have, and it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. And I'm sure that you can have the vacation of a lifetime in Hawaii. But I'm also pretty sure you can have a mediocre vacation. And in fact, I know several people who've been to Hawaii and they weren't that impressed. And for every luxurious paradise like, venue, there's also, there's crumbling parking lots and long lines and things that just aren't, what you were hoping for, and it's expensive. And so it's very possible to go to Hawaii, and Hawaii varies a lot. Each island's quite a bit different. You could maybe not have a great vacation there, and you might be able to go to the Caribbean twice for the price of going to Hawaii once.
That's true. It's so expensive to get over there.
Yeah. I like it. I recommend it. It's a once in a lifetime kind of thing, but maybe only once. Because like I said, I know several people who are like, yeah, I've gone once. I'm not ever going to go again.
I was just about to say, so you would probably not go back again, just because there's other places you'd like to try and visit, maybe.
See, Hawaii has an extra pull for me because it's got historical stuff. If you go to Oahu and go to Pearl Harbor and the Punch Bowl Cemetery and places like that, that's stuff I want to see again. And my wife has never been there, and so I wouldn't mind taking her.
Okay.
Because I went as a child. So yeah, it's good. But do you know the term the Paris syndrome?
Paris syndrome. You mean? I'm assuming this is like where it's in your mind. That's just like this most magical, amazing place ever, and it's almost like then you shouldn't go because it'll be a letdown.
Yes. In the 80s and 90s, this came around where Japanese tourists who went to Paris by the millions, it was such a common thing that they'd have this disappointment that some of them who maybe weren't very psychologically well, they would have like fits and like hallucinations and like need hospitalized.
Oh, wow.
Because Paris was so disappointing to them, and it's just not as
they
beautiful
built up
as they
the
thought
hype.
it would be. Right, they thought it was going to be so amazing, and it just wasn't that amazing. And it's called the Paris syndrome, and that's not in the DSM, but it's a thing that people are aware of. Don't be a Japanese tourist going to Paris because you're going to be disappointed.
Gotcha.
And I think Hawaii can have a little bit of that. If you're expecting heaven on earth, you might not actually experience that there, and that'd be a shame because Hawaii's a really beautiful place. So I'm going to call it a 7 out of 10.
Fair enough. Well, my next one is a flavor additive that you could have for basically anything, from a popsicle to a lollipop to a fruit snack, just a generic flavor.
Okay.
Orange flavor. Orange is a 7 out of 10. And I feel like I need to...
Like orange candy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or orange anything. Like
Orange-
I said, popsicle,
Gumdrops, whatever.
And I should be specific. Just orange. I'm not talking about like dreamsicle here because that elevates it. Just orange.
Okay.
Now, there's a fruit snack that my wife and I frequently get from Aldi and put it in our lunches. And they sell two different types. One of them is a blend that just has a whole bunch of different fruit snacks in there.
Right.
And my wife constantly bemoans the fact that she'll open up one and she's like, there were no oranges in this one. And I'm like, who cares? And she's like, but I love the orange ones. And I tell her, dear, there's a reason that they sell this second pack that I get that has only strawberries in it. Because the people have spoken. Orange is not the best one. Because she's like, why isn't there an only orange one? I'm like, because no one would buy it. Right. That's why. It's a 7. That's all it is. Now,
I can see that.
To be fair, orange is better than, in my opinion, grape flavor. Certainly banana. I hate artificial banana flavor. It's fine. I'll grab an orange popsicle, but it's not gonna be like number one on my list of flavors.
You don't dislike it. It's just not up in that top echelon. Yeah. So strawberry is top for you, or
it's pretty high up there. I actually really, really like artificial watermelon, which is funny because I do not like regular, like the actual watermelon.
Well, I'm that way with most fruit flavors. There's a lot of fruit flavors that I like. Cherry.
I like real strawberry.
I wouldn't eat a real cherry.
I agree. I would rather have cherry flavor.
Flavor doesn't bother me at all.
Not like in cold medicine, but just like a cherry popsicle would be perfectly fine.
Right.
Yeah, I like some of the more intriguing ones too, like black cherry or mango or pineapple. Like I like some of those more, tropical things.
Sure. Okay. That's good. You give it a 7 out of 10. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, my next one, I think the TV show that to me is a 7 out of 10, and I say it with disappointment because it could have been a 10. It could have been one of the best sitcoms of all time.
All right.
And they ruined it in the last season or two, is How I Met Your Mother. Okay. That show was funny. It had a lot of original elements. It had a conceit where the dad is in the future telling his kids about this, and the whole show are just recollections.
Right.
Oh, that is so clever. And it was such a funny show with good actors in it, and it just good writing. It was a funny show, but they absolutely ruined it.
Botched it.
Oh, yes. The last season makes it almost unwatchable to me, in my opinion.
I need to comment on this for a second because my wife and I really like this show. We own, I think, the first 7 seasons of it. There's 9 of them.
You stopped at a good point there.
Season 9 was atrocious.
Yes.
But I will say this, spoiler alert for the end of season 9. Most people I know hated how the show ended. I did not. I thought it was very apropos because at the very end of the show, Ted, the main character, realizes that a person who has been a constant in his life and someone that he still has feelings for and romantic interest or whatever is Robin, one of the other main characters on the show.
Right.
And the way they end it,
And the one he pursued at the very first part of the first season.
Correct.
Right.
And it all made sense to me. Like, oh, the show was the story of Ted and Robin, and all there was other stuff interjected in there, but I think a lot of people thought that's so dumb. Like, why did they go back to that? The whole point was about the kid's mom, but that was not the point of the show. The point of the show was about Ted and Robin.
Yeah. I don't mind that as a mechanism, but the filler
I agree.
that got put in,
yes,
where the character Robin actually fell in love and married a different friend in the friend group.
Yeah, that was nonsensical.
I felt like kind of ruined it. I just, and then, because that means he was telling his children that.
Yeah.
And I just, the whole thing, they were so close to having the perfect sitcom, and it just didn't quite get there.
Well, I think that because of what you just said, that it's time for me to reveal my first award of the day. This is the award for the most 7 out of 10 TV show. And I, too, chose a sitcom. A very popular one,
I thought you were sweating bullets a minute ago. Okay, go ahead.
My pick for this award is the TV show Friends.
Okay.
For almost every reason you just said. And I actually put in parentheses here, really any sitcom, almost every sitcom, when you boil it down, is a 7 out of 10. Some are better than others.
Yeah.
I really like The Cosby Show. That's a pretty good sitcom. Yeah. I would place How I Met Your Mother slightly ahead of Friends. Now, some people would say, that's blasphemy. Okay, How I Met Your Mother is Friends 15 years later. Yes, I'm sorry.
That's a good
They're
point.
the same thing.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, Friends is a 7 out of 10. A lot of people treat it like it's this culturally iconic, great thing, and it's fine. It's funny. It's got good moments. It's got good characters. It's also got a lot of stupidity.
Yeah, young single people in the city sitcoms have been done a lot.
Yeah.
Friends was not the first.
No, nor will it be the last.
No.
So I'm sorry, it's a 7 out of 10.
I think that might be fair. I mean, people love it, and I think people of a certain age, especially, cut their teeth on it. I mean,
sure.
that is formative to them.
It's the nostalgia factor, right?
Yeah, and I've enjoyed, there's clips of it. Like on Facebook video, you can see clips of the show. I might enjoy it better and little
snippets.
Clips. Yes.
Like, let me watch the absolute funniest part of this episode where Ross freaks out over nothing or whatever.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've got one. My next 7 out of 10 is Neil deGrasse Tyson. Okay. America's science teacher.
Oh, boy. And also sometimes resident conspiracy theorist.
He's an odd bird. And the issue I have, I think he is intelligent. I think he's accomplished. I think he is easy to listen to. There's a lot of good about him. I'm not saying he's a bad person. I think he has assumed the Carl Sagan cultural position. And Carl Sagan, of course, was a scientist and kind of turned philosopher. And he very much leaned into the, here's a picture of Earth from far away. See how small and insignificant you are.
Right.
And it's like, whoa, buddy, stay in your lane. You're talking about astrophysics. That's fine. But then you verged into metaphysics, and I see Neil deGrasse Tyson regularly do this, where he starts talking about things like significance and meaning, and that's not really his area of expertise. And I don't know as though an astrophysicist should be telling us about our life choices,
Maybe, I'm not saying they can't. I mean, someone could study up really well and know all of their, Aristotelian and Platonic stuff and, really have a firm grasp over all sorts of philosophy and metaphysics.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I've heard Neil deGrasse Tyson venture out on a limb a few times and feel like,
you weren't impressed by it.
Yeah. It's no doubt he's very intelligent. No doubt that he's got a lot of good things to say. He's a 7 out of 10 for me.
I can buy that. All right. Well, we've reached my second most 7 out of 10 award for the day. This award goes to the most 7 out of 10 holiday here in the United States of America. And I'm giving this award to the 4th of July.
Oh, really?
Independence Day.
Oh, you communist.
I know. Here's the thing. Some holidays are great. Some are overrated. This one is a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
The concept is great. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying we'd be better off without Independence Day. I am very glad that we celebrate our independence as a nation every year. That's a good thing. I'm not saying we should take it away. I like Independence Day. There's decent food, usually. There's fireworks, although, frankly, those can get old real quick. All right? It's fine. It's okay.
I have essentially this on my list. It's not specifically 4th of July.
Okay.
But New Year's Eve fireworks. That's on my list.
Yeah.
And so let me bounce it back at you with New Year's Eve.
Sure.
I mean, I'm at the point in my life, and maybe I'm just old, but it's December 31st, and I go to bed at like 9 o'clock. Maybe not 9, but I go to bed early because there's nothing special about it. And we live in a neighborhood where the fireworks, you've got to scare away the evil spirits on midnight on New Year's Eve. And oh my goodness, I'm laying in bed maybe for an hour or two, and then all of a sudden, boom, right outside my window, our neighbors are fighting the Third World War. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I think it's a big deal to a lot of people. I don't want to begrudge anyone a holiday or a day off or a chance to celebrate with family. I'm for it. It just isn't a 10 out of 10 for me.
Well, can I ask a question? Does anyone care about watching a ball drop in New York City?
I don't know how that started. It's been around for a long time.
But who cares?
Yeah,
I don't see the appeal at all.
Yeah.
And you were talking about trying to fight a Third World War outside. So this last year, of course, COVID-19 has been a thing we've been going through. And so a lot of public fireworks shows were canceled for 4th of July this year. Yeah. And boy, did neighbors respond. They're there's not going to be a public show. We're just going to go buy thousands and thousands of fireworks. Jared, I went outside at one point during this evening to throw some trash away. Uh-huh. It was like the purge outside. All right. The gunshots being fired out in the distance, smoke. Yeah. There's just a layer of smoke in the air, and the smell.
The fog of war has a new definition.
I mean, it was just like, where am I right now?
Yeah, my neighborhood went berserk for it. 4th of July was a big deal this year. And, we didn't really participate. We went and spent time with family and then drove home and, made our way through the fog to get back to our house. And yeah.
It's a fine holiday. I'm glad it exists, but it's a 7 out of 10 holiday. It's no Christmas.
Well, I'm bouncing back New Year's Eve to you. Again, I agree. 7 out of 10 for that for me also.
One's kind of a weird one because I could see getting some really strong
just this one?
Yeah, this one. I could see getting some strong pushback against this, but my number 6, is photos.
Like photographs, photography.
Yes, photography as a whole. And I'll explain why. Because
Okay.
I think photos are very important. So
Do you
I
mean
need
the hobby?
No. I mean the practice of regular everyday people taking photos of everything. And not just when they're on vacation, just everything. Here's what I mean.
Okay.
Clearly, photos serve a purpose. I mean, they're hugely important. I'm not saying the world would be a better place without photos. It's good that we have photos. They're nice to look through, right? They capture, in some ways, a moment in time.
Yes.
They're very important. Although, I do point out, they're nice for people to look through. You don't look through them nearly as often as you would think you were going to, right? Yeah. In fact, I was just at a birthday party, an 80th birthday party for one of my grandfathers. And at this party, the siblings busted out these really, really old slide reel, photos and looked at them, and they hadn't been looked at in decades. Right. And it was a great moment for them. There was so much nostalgia and they loved it.
Yeah.
But a lot of effort went into putting those things on those slides and then like taking care of them and rebuffing them for like one look through. You know what I mean? Like when's the next time those are going to get looked at? I don't know if they ever will again.
Yeah. But it is still a 7.
It is still a 7. Yeah. They're important, right? There's the nostalgia factor. There's it's almost like poetry. I mean, you're seeing something that was caught in a moment of time.
Yeah.
But here's like my personal thing. This is where I come into the picture with photos. I want people to be in the moment.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like...
that's where I thought you were going to
like,
go. Was
stop
taking the photos.
Yes, stop taking the picture and experience the thing. You're like, oh, this sunset. Let me waste the next half hour trying to get a perfect picture of it. Or... you could just enjoy the sunset.
Yeah.
And you could.
Well, I think that every time I see something that, like there's somebody's being shot on the street or something like that, I'm like, wait a second. You stood there with a camera with your phone probably.
Yeah.
And just videoed it. You didn't intervene.
It makes me sick to my stomach.
Why didn't you stop and help the person? You just thought instead of helping them, you're just going to take video of them dying. That bothers me.
Yeah, this culture...
that's where I thought you were going.
Well, this culture of sideline reporter or like, I'm going to capture the moment right now and post it up on the interwebs.
Because you get social credit for it.
It like, does nothing for me.
I'm the one who took the photo. Oh, yeah, I think you need to put the thing down and go get involved and help.
And I kind of abhor selfies. I don't get it. Like,
that brings in
look
the
at
vanity.
more pictures of us taken by us.
Yeah. See, and you'll have some good balance because you look at the selfishness and the vanity of what we were just describing, and contrast that with the photos of your new child.
Absolutely.
And then especially looking at that even a year or two later because they change so quickly. I mean, you won't be able to take enough pictures, and you won't be able to look at those pictures enough of your own children. I mean, that'll be a nice counterbalance.
And that's why it's a 7 out of 10, and not like, oh, I hate photos. Like, no, there can be some real magic, and there are certain particular photos that I have that I really love, and I'm like, look at the expression on this person. Mm-hmm. Like, that is just priceless. I'm glad we captured that moment.
Record of it.
Yeah.
We have a record of it.
But sometimes I'm just like, put the phone camera away now and let's just do the thing that we're here to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's something that some people overvalue, that you're bringing down a couple steps. Let me do another one where I'm going to bring it up. Plain graham crackers. Okay, maybe if you want to really go out on a limb, you can add a glass of milk. Okay,
so you're saying people would be like, graham crackers 4 out of 10, and you're saying no?
I think yes. I think they look at that and they put that in the same category as like black licorice and lemon drops and
Saltines.
Stuff like very very old timey treats, from 100 years ago, and they are, but man, sometimes a graham cracker just tastes really good. And it's the simple things. It doesn't have to all be high fructose corn syrup. It doesn't all have to be super, over the top.
Now you said plain, right? So this is without the cinnamon.
Not even
them.
cinnamon. Nope, just plain graham crackers. Yeah.
I mean, certainly they serve a purpose. First of all, I mean, you got s'mores,
Well,
right?
see, and I'm not even saying as an ingredient in a more elaborate dish.
Just
or
a
dessert.
plain old graham
Just
cracker.
a plain old graham cracker.
I mean, they are kind of good, but I feel like it's
Yeah.
not the kind of thing that someone would reach for very regularly.
Well, we've
Or
started
even if you
buying
did,
them
you do
at
like
home.
you would do like animal crackers or something with graham flavor.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Well, and that's where I wouldn't have said that either, but we've started buying them at home. And man, we go through those fast. And so me and my kids, we're just like, oh yeah, have another graham cracker, and boy, we can polish those off pretty fast.
Well, yeah,
And
there's
so,
not that many of them in a pack.
no, no. But it just, like I said, it's not the best thing ever. It's better than some people might give it credit for.
Well, that seems fair. Absolutely. All right. Well, here is my next one. You know how you had the controversy or potential controversy last time of women's sleeveless tops?
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up again.
Well, that's okay because I've got my own here now. Makeup.
Okay.
I'm rating makeup a 7 out of 10 because I think natural beauty is too underrated and
Okay.
undervalued sometimes. And don't get me wrong, like, occasionally, using makeup every once in a while, it can look really nice and accentuate some of the best features of a person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people, would be like, well, that's just a fake representation of that person. Like, I don't want to go that far. I mean, some people, it's like, whoa, with or without makeup, it's very different. You look at these like celebrity pictures and things like that. But no, it can look good. I'm not trying to knock it. Although sometimes it can make someone look worse if applied improperly.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. My wife is just a person who doesn't wear a lot of makeup, and I fairly regularly tell her, like, man, you just look so beautiful naturally. And I'm completely fine with the fact that you're not wearing lipstick every day or that you just put on like a little bit of eyeshadow or something. There are plenty of days where she doesn't put on any makeup at all. And I'm like, you're beautiful the way God made you. You look great.
I appreciate the confidence of a woman who can go with very minimalistic makeup or no makeup at all. I think there's something to be said for that. At the same time, though, as a counselor, I also appreciate that the cultural phenomena that is female beauty is cutthroat, and women can make other women feel like garbage if somehow they're lesser than or less attractive or whatever. And so I know that that's a real phenomena that is piercing the hearts of a lot of women, and they'll feel like, man, I've got to figure out what works for me, and I want to present myself in a certain way because of the criticism I may get if I don't, and I wish that didn't exist.
Yeah,
but I can't make that I can't make that go away. I don't have the power to do that.
Well, and I'm not trying to dog it either because, occasionally there'll be times where maybe we're both trying to get dressed up and a little ritzy and go somewhere. And,
Sure.
if I notice it, I usually get brownie points for that. Like, whoa, like that looks really nice. Like you look beautiful normally anyway, but what you have put on is very lovely. It's very flattering. It's accentuating your best features. Thank you for wanting to try and look your best for me, and I'm trying to look my best for you, and let's go enjoy an evening on the town.
Excellent.
So it's a 7 out of 10.
Excellent. All right, I've got a quick one. Driving stick shift. I think people rate this lowly, and I want to advocate for it. I want to bring it up to at least a 7. I'm not saying it's a 10. I'm not saying you have to learn to drive stick shift. I'm not saying that's the only way to drive. I would just argue that controlling the transmission like that, the gears that you're in, is another level of connection to the vehicle. I think that it can aid in paying attention to your vehicle and listening to your vehicle and not checking out. And I know that we're in an age of autopilot and cars that are self-driving, or at least getting to the point where they're self-driving.
That's the one that freaks me out.
I'm a little nervous about the person who gets in the driver's seat and then just takes a nap or something. So I think in reaction to that, I appreciate, and granted, 2 of my last 3 vehicles have been manual transmission, And so most of the last 20 years, because the vehicle in between only had for a couple years. And so let's say 18 out of the last 20 years, I've been driving stick shift every day. And so I have a little bit of bias. I don't necessarily plan to do that with my next vehicle. My next vehicle probably will be an automatic transmission vehicle.
Not that you're going to have a ton of choice.
Well, yeah. Well, the reason I drive stick shift now is because it was cheaper. Nobody else wanted it. And so I got what I thought was a pretty nice little truck because no one wanted to drive stick shift.
But now companies aren't even making them anymore.
Yeah. Some muscle cars that are known for being manual transmission are now, not only can you opt out of it, but now some of them are not even being made manual transmission anymore. So it's a thing that's disappearing. It doesn't have to happen. I recognize there's some nostalgia there. But, like I said, I'm not saying it's a 10 out of 10, but for people like, it's stupid, it's a 0. No. Give it a try. Learn how to do it. You might appreciate and pay more attention to your vehicle, but I don't know as though that's critical.
Well, and I also feel like that's the kind of thing for someone who enjoys driving. Now, I don't know how to drive stick, but I do enjoy driving, whereas my wife does not. The car is just a means of getting from point A to point B. So I feel like stick is absolutely not for a person like that. It has to be for someone who kind of enjoys it and wants that closer connection with the car and with the gears and, being in control. Maybe it's just for control freaks, Jared. I don't know.
It may be. Yeah, for the person who always has to be the driver. Yeah. The stick shift is interesting. I'd encourage people to learn it, but it's not critical. So if it's a 0, please lift it up a little bit, but I'm not at all advocating for it being a necessity.
This one is also seasonal, kind of like the 4th of July, but this is Christmas light displays.
Okay.
I'm giving a 7 out of 10 to this. Certainly, they can be pretty. I mean, they can be just as generic as a single strand of lights on a house to those super elaborate, like the whole cul-de-sac has a bajillion lights and they've got it to an FM or AM radio station.
Right.
And
it's all synchronized.
Yeah, and it's just like, whoa. But, man, I don't know. I think they can start to lose their luster fairly quickly.
Have we established that Caleb doesn't like people who try too hard at holidays?
I think you might be catching on to something.
I think I'm seeing a pattern here.
But it's kind of hard to get, the light bulb to be any worse or any better than it just naturally is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think with Christmas lights, there are arrangements people come up with for their homes that are really beautiful. Mm-hmm. But the line between beautiful and garish is a thin line.
It is.
And
also,
a lot of people, taste is, kind of hard to land on. And so I think that people try to be like, well, I want my home to be beautiful. And they just kind of slap together whatever works. And
well, and talk about the diminishing return thing again. Mm-hmm. I mean, some people have to spend hours on end setting up some of these really elaborate displays. Now, I will say what brings it up to a 7 out of 10, I think, is that it's a thing that we only look at one specific time of the year.
Au contraire.
Well, I guess.
You've missed that people have started doing Halloween lights.
I guess so.
Like St. Patrick's Day, they turn everything green for a day. Thankfully, it's brief. But and then they start Christmas before Thanksgiving happens, and so you're talking a third of the year. They've got lights and inflatable decorations.
No. I see I see the inflatable decorations and all sorts of stuff. I don't really see Halloween lights. I think they're a little bit different.
I will take you down the street and
I
will show you.
All right. Well, let me put it this way: if it was an all year thing, it'd get really old.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
it's temporary. It's temporary.
Yeah, I mean, there's usually one evening a year that my wife's like, hey, let's go look at some lights, or we go to drive a show.
Because some people do it really well.
Yeah,
I mean, not necessarily bigger, they do it better.
Well, like one time, we used to live in Johnson City, Tennessee, and the Bristol Motor Speedway has this thing that they do called, the holiday lights or Motor Speedway and lights or something like that. And it's pretty neat. There's a whole drive-up thing going to the Speedway. So there's all sorts of lights and things on the way to the Speedway. And those are like, okay, they're decent. But then you actually go inside the Speedway and park, and they've got all sorts of lights like in the bowl where people would sit in the stands.
Right.
And it was pretty neat. It was a cool thing for us to do that year, but it's just not something I want to do more than once a year, really, is go look at Christmas lights.
Yeah. Yeah. Lights are pretty. I'm not opposed to them. I've done some here and there over the years, but yeah, you can go too far with it for sure. Yeah, absolutely. My next item is secondhand clothing. I'm going to give that a 7 out of 10. Now, I think this is yet another one that I'm bringing up because I think there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I could never wear something that's used.
Raises hand over here. I'm not saying I could never do it, but I am saying that I feel the prejudice when I look at my own clothing.
Right.
And if it's not something I really love, I usually don't respect the secondhand item very much.
Right.
And part of that might have to do with me being the oldest child in my family.
True,
so I didn't have a lot of secondhand.
True. Didn't have a lot of hand-me-downs.
No.
Yeah. And I would not bring something home secondhand and not wash it first. I mean,
Oh, sure.
of course,
Sure.
but after it's come back from the cleaner, man, I've had some really good name brand stuff that I paid pennies on the dollar for and in very good shape. Now, I talked to my wife about this and she said, well, yeah, we've also had stuff we brought home and then we realized why it was given away in the first place because the zipper was broken. It was, like stitched together wrong. I mean, there's just some defects that occur and the people at the secondhand shop don't notice it. And so you get it home and realize, this is why this got donated. And it should have been like turned into scraps or something. It shouldn't have been, if it doesn't work for you, then it's not going to work for anybody. But overall, I've had some really good clothing that was secondhand. I've joked before that it's, it was stuff that they didn't bury Grandpa in, that kind of thing, because it's all that stuff got donated, and then I find it, and so I don't, that doesn't bother me that someone has had it before. I feel like I'm kind of recycling it. I'm putting some use. I'm getting more life out of it. That the energy to produce it was already done, and I'm gonna let it go a little bit further before it gets completely worn out. So if people just can't fathom it, I want them to give it a try. I'm not saying that's the best clothes. Some stuff's kind of flawed or dated or whatever, but some secondhand stuff can be really valuable.
My wife loves getting the sweet deal. You know what I mean? Kind of like you were talking about, like, oh, I bought this really nice thing for like $2, and normally it's $50.
Oh, yeah, some huge amount, right?
Yeah. So there is that. I just am not super big on it. And there's some things that I'm like, oh, heck no. Like there, no secondhand underwear or socks ever. Ever.
I don't think people do that very much. I guess I shouldn't
Probably
say
not,
zero, but I don't think that happens. Yeah.
Man.
Oh my. Okay, you've got one last one on your list, right?
This is my final one. Okay. Well, it's time for my final award then
Okay.
of the day. And this one goes to the most 7 out of 10 actress. So I did my actor last time. This is my actress or female actor. And it's going to be Betty White. I know. The American treasure. How dare I?
Do you know Betty White pre-Golden Girls?
I did some reading about her today.
Okay.
So like I know the info, but if you're talking about like personal knowledge, like did I watch all that stuff? Right. No.
Well, I wasn't around pre-Golden Girls.
I know
Golden
about
Girls
her
when I was a kid, but
and so
yeah.
I want to state, she's definitely funny.
Yes.
And she is sharp for her age. She is 98.
Yeah.
I looked it up today. Her birthday is on January 22nd.
Yeah.
She is going strong. She's sharp as a tack. She also has had a prolific career. So you're right. I mean,
yes.
Mary Tyler Moore and Golden Girls and countless movies. And she has kind of been dubbed like the queen of what are they called? TV shows where there's a prize and... Man, why can't I think of the term here?
Game shows?
Yeah, thank you. Goodness gracious.
Yes.
She's kind of been dubbed the queen of game shows. She was on all of those things, like Match Game and Hollywood Squares and all of those different things. And she's good, but she frequently plays the same character, which is basically herself.
Yes.
Betty White being Betty White.
Right.
Also, she is too crass and crude for my flavor. I'm just like... you're a woman in your 70s, 80s, 90s, these different eras, and she just, I don't like it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not, it's
I
not
think
the
a
right
lot of people
kind
are
of.
not necessarily aware. If they only know her from Golden Girls, they maybe aren't aware of her doing blue comedy and being off color, and maybe haven't noticed that's kind of been her shtick in her later years.
Yeah.
That's been, let's get the old grandma to come out and curse.
Right.
And so yeah,
And that's like what the draw has been later in her career. And that's why I think she's a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Like, call her an American treasure if you want. I don't see that a movie has Betty White in it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be the funniest thing of all time. Like, if she's there, I'm like, oh, Betty White's in this. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a funny thing that she just said. Well, that thing was kind of weird. Oh, that thing was
she's
crass and
likable.
inappropriate.
She's likable, but yeah, there's better actresses out there.
Yeah, I just feel like way too many people are like, oh, 9 or 10 out of 10 because it's Betty White. It's like, well,
now she's kind of also just the novelty of her being so long lived.
Yes.
That's kind of there too. So yeah. All right, I have one final one, and this is a concession 7 out of 10. I think it should be a 10 out of 10. Okay.
So you want it to be higher,
but I recognize that most people are so completely ignorant of it that maybe 7 out of 10 is the best I can hope for.
Okay.
Okay. It's something from history. It's the 30 Years' War.
Oh, all right.
1600s. I'm going to guess that most people, I say 30 Years' War, and there's nothing. Blank. Okay. They have no context.
Very little.
So 1600s, this would be concurrent with like the Three Musketeers. Okay, if that puts a picture in your head, the story of that. Although Three Musketeers are not specifically about the 30 Years' War, they're in France when France wasn't apart. There's just a lack of anything culturally. I mean, like I said, it's not that there's not any movies or stories. Alexander Dumas wrote Three Musketeers, but there's so little.
Well, why don't you tell us? Why don't you tell the average listener here the bare bones facts about the 30 Years' War? Where was it? Who were the players?
I can tell you why it was important.
All right.
And so the bare facts are, you have all the different German principalities that some of them are Catholic and some of them are newly Protestant. And you have the Holy Roman Empire, which wasn't wholly a Roman or an empire, but it was all the German confederations in league with the Vatican. And you have basically a religious war that once it starts digging in and getting bad, it starts tipping the balance of power in Europe, and you start bringing in all kinds. I mean, from Sweden to Spain, everybody gets involved because now it doesn't even matter Protestant or Catholic. It's like, okay, there's going to be a power vacuum, and we better not be on the wrong end of this. And so all these different groups start fighting. You get mass migrations. The Pilgrims come to America because of the 30 Years' War. Okay, they left England, went to Europe first.
Right.
And the 30 Years' War starts. 2 years later, the Pilgrims are like, oh, we gone. And they fled to America, which is important for us. A lot of other people left for the New World at that time. When you talk about death and loss, I mean, people talk about World War I being so
I was just about to say, this sounds like World War I before World War I.
People called 30 Years' War the first real World War, okay? But everybody forgets that it happened. And so World War I, about 5% of Europe is killed between the war and the Spanish flu. Okay, pretty tragic, 1 out of 20. In World War II, the country that took the worst casualties was the Soviet Union. They had 1 out of 8 Soviets were killed. Okay, 1 out of 8.
12.5%.
Yep. I mean, catastrophic losses, game-changing. You lose 1 out of 8 people. That's catastrophic. And it was for Russia. I mean, Russia used to be the same size as, population-wise, as U.S. The U.S. has now doubled in the last 70 years, and Russia's about the same. I mean, they haven't really ever recovered from that. And it was 70 years ago. And so 1 out of 8 catastrophic losses. Every other country was not that bad. Even Poland didn't suffer as many casualties as Russia and the Soviet Union in World War II. But in the 30 Years' War, the continent of Europe lost 1 out of 5. Okay, something between like 8 to 12 million people were killed.
Wow.
War, plague, fire, whatever. I mean, it was bad all the way around. There were some areas of Germany that lost 60% of their people. Okay, and after the others left, I mean, we're completely depopulated. It is catastrophic. You lose. It used to be every city had a castle. And you're like, well, I've gone to Europe, and there's just like one castle here and one castle there, and they're tourist traps, and most castles don't exist anymore. They're just piles of rubble. Yeah, the 30 Years' War. All these cannons got brought in, and thousands of medieval castles were destroyed.
Wow.
Millions of people were killed. Populations moved, countries were made and unmade. I mean, it shaped the rest of modern civilization in the Western world. And everything comes from that. The English Civil War, the Pilgrims, migration to the New World, everything comes from the 30-Year War, and yet we have no songs about it, no movies about it. I mean, it is a pivotal moment in time, and most Americans, they barely recognize that that's a thing from history class somewhere, and they have zero data on it.
I feel like you're convincing me that it's more than a 7 out of 10.
Well,
honestly.
I think it should be a 10 out of. I mean, if World War I and World War II are that big, then absolutely the 30 Years' War should be.
I do have a very important clarifying question.
Okay.
Was the 30 Years' War actually 30 years?
Yeah, roughly 1618 to 1648.
Okay.
So yeah, it was. But
because there are some of these wars that have like the 100 Years' War. It's
Yes.
like, okay.
Yes,
and
so
that's
the
actually
80
really a
Years' War.
series of
Yeah.
wars and battles.
Well, and really, the 30 Years' War is kind of the pivot point of about 150 years worth of wars that are happening in Europe. So there's
Sure.
other stuff that's going on. And that's why it was so easy for all these other nations to get involved. And why so many different nations were affected by it. But yeah, I mean, we just don't have anything. I mean, you say, well, Sabaton had, the Winged Hussars. They fought in the 30 Years' War, but the song about the Siege of Vienna is like 40 years after the end of the 30 Years' War. So it's we don't have anything culturally to grab a hold of, and except for maybe the Three Musketeers, which isn't really about the war. And so I wish people understood what that was and what it meant and the effects that it had. We'd understand today better if we understood that. But I have given up trying to get people to care about it. At best, I just want people to understand, oh, yes, that's something that was important to some people at some time. And so we'll give it, reluctantly, a 7 out of 10.
Fair enough. Didn't realize this was going to change from a 7 out of 10 list into a history lesson.
Yeah,
but
well, yeah, it's important.
It's
people
good.
need to know these
It's
things.
good.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Caleb.
Thank you, Jared.